CBN News Channel, I'm Charlene Israel. President Obama has been trying to convince European allies that it's a good idea to send weapons to the rebels in Syria. But it's a tough sell, especially when it comes to Russia. Leaders of the top 8 industrial countries are gathered in Northern Ireland to focus on economic cooperation. Now they want to make sure they don't end up cooperating with terrorists in Syria. Gary Lane reports.
A chilly mood when President Obama and Russian President Putin gathered for bilateral talks during the G-8 summit. The two men are on opposite sides in the Syria conflict. Russia's Putin supports Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and doesn't believe he should step aside. On the opposite side is President Obama, who decided last week to send small arms to rebel forces fighting to overthrow the Syrian president.
What developed over several months was high confidence that the Assad regime had used chemical weapons. And I had been very clear that if we saw the use of chemical weapons taking place by the regime inside of Syria, that would change my calculus, and it has.
But Putin believes the evidence is questionable. He opposes U.S. intervention in Syria, and he said the Russian and U.S. positions, quote, do not coincide, but all of us have the intention to stop the violence in Syria. But while Obama and Putin agree to disagree on Syria, both support attempts to bring the two sides in Syria's 26-month civil war to peace negotiations to end the conflict. Arranging that is proving difficult. The rebels want Assad to step aside before talks begin. Assad and Russia refuse. Other members of the G8 were critical of Putin for supporting the Syrian dictator. One British official described the summit as a clarifying moment in differences over Syria. Putin was criticized for sending Russian arms to the Assad regime, but he responded saying the shipments were to the legitimate government of Syria, legal under international law. G8 summit host British Prime Minister David Cameron tried to emphasize areas of agreement.
It is no secret that President Putin and I have had our disagreements. We share some fundamental aims: to end the conflict, to stop Syria breaking apart.
The G8 meeting will conclude with members sending a clear message. When it comes to Syria, the G8 is really the G7 plus one. Russia stands alone in its support of the Syrian government and Bashar al-Assad. Gary Lane, CBN News.